Due to guest scheduling, this show was taped Wednesday, March 14th, before NCAA tournament action began.
Broadcasting from the KC Coyote Studios, you're listening to the Great American Sports Show on 102.7 KPGZ, the most comprehensive and hard-hitting sports hour in the KC Metro. And now, here are your hosts, the Outsiders, Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger.
And welcome to the Great American Sports Show here on 102.7 FM. Noah Groniger alongside Clint Schweitzer. Beware, the Ides of March are upon us, as is March Madness, and it's everyone's time to find their one shining moment. Gonzaga found theirs last year, making it all the way to the national championship game before falling to the North Carolina Tar Heels. But we are going to be joined today by a former Gonzaga guard who got the whole craze started. Matt Santangelo will be joining us later on here today.
We're excited to welcome Matt back to the show. When it's March, that means Matt Santangelo is coming on this show. We've been doing this for a long time. He's been doing it with us, talking about Gonzaga, talking about college basketball in general. We're going to be getting into all that and much more as, you know, really the one thing that I take from this March Madness and this sort of process is the selection show and the Twitter craze about how horrible the selection show was and the whining about the teams that did not get in. I don't remember as much, sort of backlash against the teams that didn't get in. Maybe because you have a team like Syracuse getting in that's kind of questionable. You had teams right on the fringe. Maybe it's because none of us understand these quadrant 1, 2, and 3 wins. Maybe because we don't understand the metrics. The seedings are a little skewered this year. It's just kind of a different deal. But that being said, it's wide open. Anyone could win this thing. And by that, I don't mean literally anyone, but when you look around, the Blue Bloods, though, the Blue Bloods are as susceptible this year as they have been. You look at North Carolina, a 2 seed. Well, they have 10 losses. Michigan State, or were they, underrated a little bit as far as their seed goes? A lot of people thought they could have been a 1 or a 2. They're a 3. What do you make of this? A lot of people might believe that the FBI investigations and the teams that are, sort of have that cloud over their heads sort of took a bit of a backlash with the seedings and getting into the tournament. We saw Louisville left out.
Yeah, but you got Arizona up there as a 4 seed. But Michigan State, everyone's like, if this was last year, Gonzaga might have been a 2 seed. North Carolina probably would have been a 3, maybe a 4 seed. Michigan State probably would have been on the 1 line instead of Xavier. But all these quadrant 1s, quadrant 2 wins, nobody knows what it really means and why teams are falling. The rankings, the top 25 means nothing. You've got teams like Gonzaga, a 6 seed, or ranked 6 in the country in the top 25. That should slot them in as a 2, but now they're in a 4 because they don't have enough quadrant 1 wins. What does that mean? Nobody knows.
I don't like it. I know I don't like change much, and I don't like all these changes. And the tournament selection show was horrible. I agree. When you just announce the teams, straight up the team, and they show the team sitting there, woo, we're in, but we have no idea where we're going or who we're playing. We'll see that 20 minutes down the road. TBS, huge fail on their part. Although we looked back at the way that the college football playoff selection show was equally as terrible for ESPN back in December.
Yeah, it seems like nobody can get this right. Just go through it region by region, but go quickly. You don't have to tell what conference the team's in, their record, what do you think about them. That can go when you've released every single region. Then you can go talk about it and what do you see, what do you like, what do you don't like. But to go through it and the 1 seed, Kansas Jayhawks. They're from the Big 12. They have only 5 losses on the season.
Is this your best Bryant Gumbel right here? Is that what this is?
Yeah, I was trying a Bryant Gumbel or a Greg Gumbel. And then you've got versus 16 seed Penn. They are from the Ivy League. A 3-loss team faces the Kansas Jayhawks. Oh, come on. Move it along. You can go quicker. Boom, boom, boom. Name them, then talk about it.
Well, for the first time since 2013, all 3 area teams are in the tournament. Kansas State and Missouri both Kansas State's a 9 seed, Missouri's an 8 seed, and you have, of course, Kansas a 1 seed in the Midwest taking on Penn. You mentioned Penn earlier. Kansas State and Creighton. Marcus Foster, former guard for the Kansas State Wildcats, now a part of the Creighton Blue Jays. They've been a really solid program under Coach McDermott. A lot of people really, as the way Kansas State finished the season out, a lot of people picking Creighton in this game. I got to agree. I got Creighton moving on and maybe creating a little bit of some problems for Virginia, who without they've lost a key player going forward. They're 6th man. Missouri against Florida State. another situation that we are kind of unknown because Michael Porter Jr. is back, was rusty in his first game, but now, he's going to have to be kind of a focal point without second leading scorer Jordan Barnett. Florida State, a lot of size, a lot of athleticism, but they've really faltered down the stretch, losing 6 of 10, blown out in their conference tournament game against Louisville. So you look at Missouri, they got they have the, fortune, if you will, of maybe having the worst number 1 seed in Xavier in their region. Not to say that Missouri's you should expect them to win that game or anything should they get by Florida State. But you look at that West, that's where Gonzaga resides. Is the West the easiest path to the Final Four for somebody?
I think it might be. You've got to get past to Michigan, North Carolina at the bottom, but that comes way down the line in the Elite Eight if we're talking about Missouri and Gonzaga here. Xavier, the worst number 1 seed, everyone's saying. They thought that should have been Michigan State, but it's not. Michigan State's a 3 seed, so Xavier slots in there as the 1 seed. So I definitely like that matchup for either Missouri or Gonzaga. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how Michael Porter Jr. reacts to coming back, having that rust, and having a bad game. And coming back and now, okay, this is one and done. This isn't more, okay, we lose in the SEC tournament. We're still going to be in. It's no big deal. I've got to get it right, and I've got to get it right now. Otherwise, we're going home. I'm going to the NBA making a lot of money, which is fine.
There's no time like the present for Michael Porter Jr. And, to be able to see him play in this tournament, I think that's a big deal. And I think that people their eyes are going to be on this game. It's the last game, I think, that tips off, or second to last game. It's at 8:50, on Friday night. So it's one of the last games to tip off in this entire first round. And there's going to be a lot of eyes on it. You want to see how this guy reacts, how this team plays. Missouri has sort of been a team that, under lots of adversity this year, Konzo Martin's had to deal with. Players leaving, 2 players leaving, 1 thrown off the team. Michael Porter going down, trying to put this together without their best player. But really, the best player on the team has been Jonte Porter. He's the guy that should be in high school right now. So it's going to be exciting for Missouri fans. They're back in this. That's where Missouri belongs, at least a part of the tournament, and it bodes well for Konzo Martin's team going forward. You look at the Midwest, we talk about the Kansas Jayhawks. What do you see out of that? So, because I think that obviously it stands out that Michigan State and Duke are in their region. You go, they're not getting very far, but they're going to only have to beat one of them to get there.
Yeah.
I'm not really, a big fan. If they would take on like a 5th seed like Clemson or Auburn, the 4 seed, I'm not really a big fan of either one of those teams. To me, they got a cakewalk to the regional final, and then all you have to do is beat Michigan State or Duke. That being said, I never picked Kansas past the second round in my bracket. It's a tradition, and Barack Obama can disagree with me all he wants, but he's not the president anymore.
Yeah, I look at maybe NC State could cause some trouble in that second round game for the Kansas Jayhawks, but if they get past there, I don't really see much that can stop them until they get to Michigan State or Duke. I like Michigan State. I think it's going to be them. I think they get to the Final Four, so I don't see Kansas moving past that. You have Azubuike coming back for the NCAA tournament, so can he integrate in there? DeSouza
has played a lot. He's been like a superhuman for Kansas after being relatively ineffective since he was eligible to play after the first semester ended. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I think that conference-wise, when you look at the conferences, 9 teams from the ACC, 8 teams from the SEC, a record for the SEC getting 8 in. What do you see this? Because the Big 12 had, 7?
Yeah.
So how do you see the conferences playing out here? Because the SEC might have got 8 in, but I don't know if there's anybody but Kentucky, maybe Tennessee that can get to the Final Four. I don't really.
I don't have any of them. I don't see any of them getting to the Final Four. Kentucky's going to have to go up against Arizona unless there's some sort of upset. So I think Arizona's just too much for them with DeAndre Ayton there. So he's a once in a generation type player, DeAndre Ayton. He's going first in the NBA draft, and he could be a Wilt Chamberlain type that we're going to see in the NBA for years to come. So Kentucky's probably going to run out of gas here quick. And the Big 12, I don't like any of these matchups. I got Oklahoma, Texas Tech going out early. I just don't like it. Tennessee might be able to do something. They've got a bracket, a region that I think they could come out of if everything falls right for them. Auburn's going to have to face Kansas too early. They're going to be gone. So I don't like kind of where the SEC teams are in the bracket. I think they're going to face some superior matchups, and that's going to be their downfall.
I agree with you. You know, you talk about upsets. When you look around, everybody has to pick your 12-5s, maybe your 13-4s, maybe even your 14-3s.
The sexy one is Loyola Chicago over Miami. Seems like
that's
everyone's
an 11-6.
picking that. Yeah,
and I'll take. Yeah, I've got that too. That is kind of the sexy one. But a team that I look at. And that's coming from the East region, and that is Stephen F. Austin. That is a team that has a 14 seed playing Texas Tech, a Texas Tech team that has faltered down the stretch.
Not sure if they're going to have Evans, their star.
Exactly, and Stephen F. Austin's a team that I saw play Missouri early in the year, and they took Missouri to the wire. I mean, it was a miracle Missouri got.
I remember that game.
The way they pressure the basketball,
yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
Their defense, the way they play, the pressure defense could create problems for a Texas Tech. And certainly, if they were able to win that, a Florida or whoever they were to play the next run. So Stephen F. Austin's a team I like. I like South Dakota State as a 12-5 upset against Ohio State, And actually this year I have two 12-5 upsets. So I actually have Murray State over West Virginia as well. This shows you how much I think of the Big 12. Basically nothing.
I don't agree with you on West Virginia. I think they'll be able to get past that one.
It's not Kansas, so they do have a chance to actually win the game.
But speaking of Kansas, because we just can't talk enough about Kansas, but we have New Mexico State. I think they're going to upset Clemson. They could even upset Auburn, and then Kansas gets a cakewalk, a 16, a 9, and then a 12 until they have to play a Michigan State or a Duke. That seems to be the running scenario for Kansas in the tournament.
But I know Kansas has played better of late. I don't see this as a Final Four team. Not that they can't get there, because they certainly can, because I've got a 5 seed in my Final Four. So absolutely, but I don't know that they can score on anyone. I don't know that they have the mental toughness to take on a team like Michigan State with Tom Izzo and the tough-minded team that they have. Granted, though, the Big Ten has been a massive disappointment this year. Although, look at it, you've got 3 teams that are, top seeds. You've got Michigan State, and Purdue. All, 3 seeds or better.
Yeah, I don't think much of Purdue. I think they could fall real early. But Michigan State and Michigan, I could see them going very far in this tournament. But you mentioned the Final Four. I got to ask you, who's in your Final Four? I got to get this.
So basically, as I tell you this, you want to go ahead and not pick any of these teams, because I typically get 0, maybe 1 in my Final Four each year through my picks. So please don't bother picking any of these teams if you're picking. But I've got Kentucky coming out of the South.
I just told you they're not going to beat Arizona.
I've got Kentucky beating Arizona, and I've got them beating Cincinnati kind of down the pike. I just cannot do it. I cannot pick Virginia until they get there. But I've got Kentucky, North Carolina, hesitantly. I really don't want to pick North Carolina into that for a 3rd straight Final Four. And then from the Midwest, I have Michigan State coming out of that, beating I believe I have them beating Clemson to get there. And then I have Villanova, and I have Villanova winning it all. So Villanova out of the East, that's my Final Four. I'm sticking to it, and there's nothing you can do to sway me. Probably because by the time the show is airing, a lot of these games have already taken place, and a lot of what we said has probably just thrown out the window. But we had to take the show on Wednesday. All your
Final Four is gone, Clint. I'm sorry.
Very possible. We had to take the show on a Wednesday. We want to remind everyone.
Well, let me give you the correct Final Four, just in case you're wondering. Out of the South, I have Arizona making the Final Four. I think they're going to run right through. Like you mentioned, I have them beating Kentucky and Virginia. They're missing their 6th man. I just don't think they're going to have enough firepower to stay within Arizona. And then out of the West, of course, me and Matt Santangelo, I think we agree on this. We've got Gonzaga coming out of there. And out of the East, I've got Villanova. I agree with you there. And I agree with you in the Midwest as well. Michigan State comes out of there. It's Gonzaga, Michigan State in the final, and Gonzaga gets it done. They rectify what went wrong last year, losing to North Carolina. They get it done this year, and they send Jonathan Williams, Josh Perkins, the seniors off with a national championship.
You just don't seem like the type that would ever predict a championship for one of your teams. I mean, have you just think about the Chiefs. Are the Chiefs ever going to win a Super Bowl, Noah?
Absolutely not.
So they're point right there.
But Gonzaga showed me that they can get to one. They're close. Shemek Karnowski didn't have a great game. If he would have, maybe things could have been different. And North Carolina, with their cheating on test scores, their whole team probably should have been academically ineligible. So that's not fair. The FBI needs to get on that, but that's a different story for a different day.
Well, how do you feel about a potential Sweet 16 matchup, Gonzaga and Missouri? Our team's going at it in the Sweet 16 with Jonathan Williams being an ex-Missouri Tiger. That'd be all sorts of great storylines. The number 1 seed would be gone. You would be feeling like the path would be even better. You got to play an 8 seed instead of a 1 or something there. It'd be
interesting.
Ideal.
I think Gonzaga has the players to match up with anyone on Missouri, including a
Well,
Michael
yeah.
Porter Jr. or Rui Hachimura.
The question would be, can Missouri match up with Gonzaga? I don't think it would be the other way around.
I know, but Michael Porter Jr. poses problems for a lot of teams, but I think Gonzaga has the length and the stretch fours that can deal with a Michael Porter Jr. and Rui Hachimura, even a Jonathan Williams, although he isn't as fleet of foot. Killian Tilly can get out there, drag him away from the basket as well and hit threes. So I think it'd be an interesting matchup, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see how Michael Porter Jr. does against Florida State, but I definitely would pick Gonzaga in that because I'm a Gonzaga fan.
Is there a more exciting time of year? I mean, we cover football like
March Madness
like
and opening day for baseball is all I can come up with.
I'm sorry?
That's a joke. There we
Yeah.
go. I was waiting for that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we cover a lot of football, and football's so big for us and what we do at the Great American Sports Show. There's nothing like the opening rounds of March Madness. You're glued
Absolutely
to
no.
it. You have to know every second, every upset, every buzzer beater, everything just means so much, and you're just dialed in.
You're
That's
at
why
work
March
trying
Madness
to
is
watch
special.
on your phone
Yeah.
or get an iPad or turn it on the projector and block the windows so any assistant principals or principals walking by, any supervisors cannot see what's going on, the shenanigans at hand watching Gonzaga.
Well, we're excited for all the shenanigans because that's what this is about, March Madness, and really it's such a special time of year. And when we come back here on the Great American Sports Show, we are going to be welcoming Matt Santangelo, former Gonzaga Bulldog, former Gonzaga radio broadcaster, and we're going to be getting into this whole thing in much more depth with Mr. Santangelo when we come back here on 102.7 FM.
And welcome back to the Great American Sports Show here on 102.7 FM. We are currently being joined by former Gonzaga guard, former Gonzaga radio broadcaster, Matt Santangelo. Matt, it wouldn't be March without talking to you. How's everything going?
Well, I thought my feelings were going to be hurt if I didn't get the text message from Noah yesterday. I was just like, God, how far have I fallen from the top of the ladder there? But no, I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh no, absolutely. We would not go in March without it, especially with Gonzaga in this thing and doing their usual thing here. A lot of potential in this bracket. First off, let's just kind of talk about the West bracket that Gonzaga's in. A 4 seed here. The number 1 seed in this bracket is Xavier. If you want to argue maybe the weakest of the 4 number 1 seeds. As you look at the West, you look at Gonzaga as a 4 seed. How do you see their road back to the Final Four, man? How do you see this happening?
Well, I was really, kind of nervous that they would end up being a 5 seed. I thought the committee would, I don't know if punish is the right word, but make their road a little bit harder. But on paper, it looks like they're in a good spot. I don't necessarily like the familiarity. You talk about, the potential for an Ohio State, matchup in the second round. Certainly the Xavier is the number 1, even though, arguably they are the weaker of the number 1s, but there's still that, that hangover from last year, and certainly with Ohio State from the PK80 in the preseason. But all in all, you all know me. I've been on the show now the last several Marches. You kind of throw all that out the window because whoever wants it more is going to go ahead and get it in March. And so to talk about, the road through the bracket or through the tournament is kind of hard for me, as I really like to focus at one game at a time. But it seems, again, 30,000-foot viewing on paper, they got a pretty good road to go deep in the tournament.
Well, Matt, Jay Billis was on ESPN yesterday talking about the best coaches in the game, mentioning the usual suspects, your Bill Self, your Calipari, your Izzo, your Krzyzewski, and Roy Williams. But where does Mark Few fall in that pecking order in the hierarchy of the best coaches in the game? Because he gets his first McDonald's All-American, and right to the national championship game he goes.
Well, are you guys talking about the FBI investigation with the Jay Billis's list of great coaches, or what are we talking about here? I think there's some room for interpretation on that one. I think, with Coach Few, when you talk about his place on that list, this is 20 years in the NCAA tournament, 20 consecutive years. And you can point to, if you want to throw shade, you can point to all the different reasons why Gonzaga's been able to do it. But there's at 20 years into this run, there's very few negative things you can throw at this program. They've kind of done it with all. And the great thing about Coach Few is he can point to every form of a college basketball player, from a true freshman, a one and done in Zach Collins, to transfer mid-year to a mid-career redshirt in Kelly Olynyk. I was referring to Kyle Wilcher on the transfer mid-career, to the fifth-year, seniors and the Jordan Matthews of the world, to the true freshman that has developed, the Domantas Sabonis. So they kind of can point to every form imaginable of a college basketball player that they've not only been able to recruit and bring into their program, but really, really have success with, and national success. So I think, when you start to make that superlative list of the greatest coaches in the game, it's a disservice to those athletes, a disservice to the game of college basketball, not to mention Coach Few and Gonzaga University and what they've been able to accomplish. Because if it were easy, other schools would have accomplished it, and there's just not that many that are doing it at the level that you used doing it year in and year out.
Well, after the national championship loss, Gonzaga loses Zach Collins, Shemek Karnowski, Nigel Williams-Goss, Jordan Matthews. I was thinking maybe this could be a down year for Gonzaga. Maybe this is St. Mary's year, and it was there tied for a little bit. St. Mary's got the lead, but Gonzaga came away with the WCC. So just how great a coaching job is this season for Mark Few and these Gonzaga Bulldogs, and the development of Rui Hachimura and Killian Tilly, who's coming on, a confident player, seems to have found his role.
No, I think that's a great point, because I think, when you look at what the roster, should have been, because you got to remember, like when Gonzaga recruits, they're not recruiting one and done. That was never the intention with Zach Collins, even though that was a remote reality, but that wasn't what you're recruiting them for. I think. And so when Gonzaga is looking to build the roster, they're expecting to have these players, for a couple of years at least before they move on to the next level. And so for them to be able to kind of reload this year with this roster, to have continuity at the perimeter position with Silas Melson and Josh Perkins certainly helped. And to have the freshman play in Zach Norvell and Corey Kispert to complement the development of a Rui and a Tilly, and then to have the senior leadership from J3, Jonathan Williams III. I mean, all of those things are factors, but that's kind of, what the expectation of the Gonzaga is, for these players to step in and fill the role as to what's needed for the program to remain successful. And this is just another great example of a Zag team that's kind of come together. And yeah, they had some lumps and they've learned their way, and St. Mary's had all the hype, but they used that for motivation. And when it came to winning time, Gonzaga went out and did what they've done for, the recent history, and they've been out and won championships.
Well, let's talk about Gonzaga's first opponent. It will be the UNC Greensboro Spartans, 27-7 overall. Actually put up 48 against Virginia, which isn't bad. So, Clemson only got to 37. So UNC Greensboro, what do they bring to the table? I don't know a lot about this team, honestly. You got a guy, their leading scorer, Francis Alonso, averages 15.6 a game. There's obviously, aside from that, what do you know about him? What should Gonzaga fans be thinking about as they look ahead to this opponent?
Well, here's a great connection in Spokane, the little, the smaller town that we live in. I went to get my haircut yesterday, and the gentleman that came and asked me to get their haircut was the video coordinator for GU. So he and I sat and chatted a little bit about this exact subject. The defensive efficiency for UNC Greensboro is very, very high. So this is a hard-nosed team. That's what those stats tell me, is that they're going to come out and really defend. They don't necessarily score in bunches, even though they're capable of scoring. And they got a couple players that can, traditional size, and the fact that they have a couple bodies that can go inside. Maybe not as big and physical as GU in the interior, but they also have a stretch four that can kind of the bigger body that can step outside and stretch the game a little bit. So I think it's going to be a good game. I think, when you look at the mid-majors, you really have to look at that hallmark of kind of playing extremely hard, that competitive, hard-nosed nature. And then the fact that they're going to be really well coached. They have to be really well coached in order to accomplish what they accomplish in the college game. They're going to scout well for as much as you can scout. Especially this Gonzaga team is very versatile. I think that's going to be a challenge for UNC Greensboro. But really, when I got to go to Las Vegas for the West Coast Conference Tournament Championship, and saw, a really hot Gonzaga team. They're playing with a ton of confidence right now. They're shooting the ball well. They're defending it really, really well. So I think, Gonzaga is in a good spot. But in March, you just can't overlook anyone. You have to give credit and credence to the sense of urgency that comes along with win or go home mentality. And you better believe UNC Greensboro is going to be playing with no pressure, and they're going to really come out and try to apply that pressure, flip that switch, and apply that pressure to GU.
Well, Matt, you and I always haven't seen eye to eye on Josh Perkins. If he's playing his game, if he's staying focused and kind of facilitating to the rest of the players, the rest of the team, he can get things going. He's got a great shot, but if that shot's not going, it seems like the wheels get moving in his head a little too fast, starts getting some unforced turnovers and bad shot selection.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with you on that front at all. I think Perk's idea of what he needs to do to be an effective point guard changes from game to game. I guess is how I would describe it. And believe me, I'm a homer, so you're not going to get too much critical thought with me. But I think with Perk is that he'd much rather shoot the high percentage from three or make the fancy pass than just do the simple basic stuff from down the floor every time. The kind of the repeatable behavior, if you will. It's kind of like my golf game. I can't repeat a golf swing, so my golf game stinks, right? So for Perk, it's just kind of doing the simple things, time in and time out, and creating that consistency. But the one thing Perk has proven is that he's a winner. He's found ways to drive this team towards a winning behavior. It seems like from body language and attitude, he's in a good spot right now, even if his shot's not falling and if he's not producing those highlight type plays. You're not seeing him kind of do the ebbs and flows or the ups and downs of the Josh Perkins journey. So I think he's in a good spot. And the great thing about this Gonzaga team going into March is that they know what March feels like. They know what April feels like now in the NCAA tournament. They're going to go in with a ton of confidence to try to recreate kind of the magical run of last year, getting all the way to the national championship.
Well, last year we had Josh Perkins, Silas Melson, Jonathan Williams, and Killian Tilly get a lot of playing time throughout the tournament. What can we expect from some of these new faces and having bigger roles with Rui Hachimura, Corey Kispert, and Zach Norvell?
Well, I'll start. Rui's the easy one to start with, but I'm going to start with Zach Norvell because he's the one that starts on the floor. He's got to come out and really set that tone early on. He's such a tremendous young talent with great confidence. I think he's going to really flourish on the stage because he won't back down from it. He won't back down from the bright lights and the pressure of the NCAA tournament. He's a great dude. He's just a really insightful and smart young man that plays with a lot of confidence. I foresee him like really, kind of reveling on the stage of the NCAA tournament and really having fun with it. Tilly is a different. He's he was great off the bench last year with so much great energy, great sixth man, change tempo, could come in and really bring great energy to the game. Now he has to kind of sustain that energy this season, and I think he's ready to go. Like, he was absolutely on fire in Las Vegas. I mean, I think he missed 2 shots from 3, maybe. Other than that, he was lights out in Las Vegas, so he's playing with a ton of confidence. And then Rui, God bless Rui. He has no clue what's going on. So he's going to have fun in the spotlight. He just is out there. He's such a graceful and explosive athlete who's playing with a ton of confidence. And, I don't think he kind of reminds me, not for his skill or athletic talent, but kind of us. I mean, there's a little bit of just kind of innocence to his, mentality and innocence to his game. And he's really just going to go out and just be Rui. And he doesn't care if it's in front of 20,000 people with all the lights on or if it's a do or die moment. He's just going to go play with a ton of confidence and play loose. And I think that's the confidence and development that the coaching staff has kind of instilled in him throughout this year, to just go, and he just gets to go be himself. So I'm really excited for him to play, and it's always fun to see him match up with, the next level of athlete in the NCAA tournament, just to really see how high he can go.
Well, we know the stronghold that Gonzaga has had over the West Coast Conference over the last 20 years. It was a one bid league this year with St. Mary's getting left out. A lot of rumors circulating that the Mountain West may be the destination for Gonzaga. It was a 2-bid league. You got to San Diego State and Nevada this year, but there's been a lot of programs in that league that have had relative success. You've had like Utah State. There's been teams that have been able to do some damage. What do you think about the prospects of Gonzaga heading to that conference? A good idea or bad idea?
Yeah, I'm not convinced it's a good idea. Only because I think, especially this year, St. Mary's gets robbed. I mean, that's one that, St. Mary's should be in the NCAA tournament. It's unfortunate that they're not. And so really the West Coast Conference is a two-bid league. With BYU, I mean, the great irony of it all with the Mountain West comparison is that had BYU gotten hot, more hot in Vegas and they beat St. Mary's, and had they beat GU, now you're arguing that the West Coast Conference is a three-bid league all of a sudden, because St. Mary's have been on the bubble, and I would assume that Gonzaga's in the tournament. And so, is that really a plus to go to the Mountain West? When you start to look at the Mountain West as a whole, ups and downs. Yes, there's some teams that have done well, but no great sustained, excellence, year in and year out. Then you start to look at state school versus a small Jesuit school. What's Gonzaga going to do in Laramie, Wyoming, for example, or Logan, Utah with Utah State versus what they do here in Spokane. So I think there's some challenges there. I also think when you talk about Gonzaga trying to elevate its program on a national level by improving their conference, now you're going to go into a football conference that is going to compete for attention and resources and funding. I don't know how that plays out. So I think there's a lot more questions to me personally that would need to be answered before I could make a statement if it would be a positive to the Mountain West or not. I just know that it just on paper it just doesn't. It's not a no-brainer. It's not like you're creating a new conference, called the Big West to complement the Big East, where you're looking for the best programs on the West Coast that aren't in the Pac-12 or aren't in the Power 5 to come together. I just don't think the Mountain West really offers the unquestionable upgrade that I think a Gonzaga would, command because of the success they've had over the last 20 years.
Well, Matt, what did you think of the changes this year with the Quadrant 1 and Quadrant 2 wins? Gonzaga's a 6th-ranked team that usually puts them as a 2, maybe a 3 seed, but they dropped down to the 4 line. Michigan State, there was talk about them being a 1 seed. They're at the 3 line. North Carolina, 9 losses, but 14 Quadrant 1 wins, so they're a 2 seed. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, I think it's all a bunch of baloney, to be honest with you. I think just because it just makes either the in preseason and in-season polls are completely irrelevant. So why even keep those? Or you need to do a better job of explaining kind of the postseason criteria. And so I think that it's created an issue for the NCAA to kind of define exactly what they value and how they value it, which is great for the three of us sitting here talking about college sports, but maybe not so great for the game itself or for those athletes and coaches. How do you recruit? How do you tell a story? How do you get the resources into the program to make it sustainable? So, yeah, I'm not as we talked about, I'm not on the radio with Gonzaga, so I'm not quite as intimately in the know as far as the inner workings of college basketball, where from the outside looking in as a fan, it just moves the target, and you're trying to justify rationalized behavior like in Oklahoma getting in, when from the casual fan it says, well, of course Oklahoma got in. They have Trae Young, and people are going to pay to see him play, and then it kind of diminishes the quality or the value of what a magical, wonderful tournament is in March.
We talked about UNC Greensboro and what they bring to the table. Is there a type of team or a certain kind of matchup that you feel like would be kind of detrimental to Gonzaga, a team regardless of what it is that they do well? Is there a team out there? Is there just a specific style of basketball that you could slow Gonzaga down that could really create some problems? And maybe it's against Missouri, a team that's Jonathan Williams' old team with the Michael Porter Jr. that all of a sudden comes back to play and starts lighting it up. I'm only saying that because we're in Missouri here. So,
yeah, I think certainly any team with Michael Porter Jr. could create some matchup issues if he gets back, and obviously what a tough spot for him to be in coming in at this time of the year, and then expected to obviously go out and perform at an extremely high level. But I think a team that shoots the ball well and has significant size inside is going to be a challenge. You kind of look back to some of the games throughout the year. Florida comes to mind in the PK80. They shot the ball extremely well from the perimeter over that tournament, and especially in that Gonzaga game. Yet they still had enough physical presence inside. Now, Florida's had their ups and downs throughout the year, but it kind of ebbs and flows with the jump shot. When the jump shot's falling, they're one of the best teams in America. When the jump shot's not, they're definitely beatable. So I think that those teams certainly can create some problems. That's why Xavier becomes a little bit, potentially worrisome if Gonzaga is able to get to a point where they can play against them, because they still have that solid perimeter game, and they're able to knock down jumpers, especially with Blewett being able to put the ball on the floor and really go get his shot when he wants to. Other than that, I think it's going to take a pretty high-level team. I mean, at this point for Gonzaga, and even this team in particular, this year's team, you're looking at a pretty, you're splitting hairs a little bit on what would be a tough matchup, because you're really asking for teams or looking at teams that can do, almost everything at a really high level, because that's the talent level that Gonzaga brings. They play hard each and every night. They take care of the basketball. They rebound the basketball. They defend the basketball. And when you do those three things, each and every night, you're going to put yourself in a place to win, or at least give yourself a chance to win more often than not.
Well, Matt, you talked about no longer being part of the Gonzaga radio broadcast. Rumors are that you took a step back to kind of concentrate on Hoop Fest coming up June 30th through July 1st. Talk to us a little bit more about that, if those rumors are true, and how Adam Morrison fell into your role.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. No, I definitely stepped away from the radio. I think, especially after last year's run, it deep into March and into April with the national championship. I still have a day job, and that day job is really tied to basketball in our community, in our region, which I'm really, really grateful for, tied to Hoop Fest, which is the largest 3-on-3 basketball tournament in the world. You talked about the days, June 30th, July 1st, and we'll plan to bring 6,000 plus teams, 24,000 plus athletes, and about 250,000 people to downtown Spokane for a weekend. It's really an extraordinary event, and literally the largest and greatest of its kind. So I'm not even breaking there. I'm just telling you the facts. And so there's also, we do programs throughout the year tied to youth basketball in the area, kindergarten through 8th grade programming. So this is a basketball passionate town here, Spokane. And so it's really trying to deliver the game of basketball in a way that kind of redefines, youth sports and all the negative connotations around that, and really trying to develop a great base and foundation. So staying home from the radio this year gave me a chance to really dig into the community, to be able to, find ways to get people to love basketball. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. There's nothing more eloquent than that. I'm passionate about the game of basketball. I want the next generation to be even more passionate. I want them to be even more equipped and more and better coached and better taught. So that's what we're trying to offer here in Spokane. And then really, at the end of the day, I get a chance to spend more time with my family. And I got a young family, a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a wife that for some reason still likes having me around. So I got to take advantage of that while I got it. So even though I love the radio and I certainly miss the radio, I'm extremely grateful for the time I've been given to be home this winter with my family.
Absolutely, and we encourage everyone to go check it out at SpokaneHoopFest.net. And Matt, we can't thank you enough for being on. I think I saw a picture of you last year with Kevin Durant, and there's a rumor floating around another one. I started this one, that you beat Kevin Durant in a one-on-one game before that picture.
Crushed him. I mean, it was. I mean, no one knows this, and it's nowhere to be found on the internet, but I dominated them. And then it's pretty awesome because Kevin Durant did show up to Hoop Fest last year, and we were very, very fortunate to have him. But of course, the question is, who do we have this year? My children are already lobbying for a Giannis or maybe a Russell Westbrook sighting. I'm going straight for LeBron or Michael Jordan. Let's go straight to the top. But you never know what you're going to find at Hoop Fest in addition to a wonderful tournament.
Maybe LeVar Ball will come over from Lithuania.
Yeah,
that's an idea too.
Hey, you get some tweets and some retweets on that one, man. There's no doubt about it. Matt, I'm going to go ahead and pencil you in for this time next March, my friend. We cannot thank you enough. We always enjoy it. Great stuff, man. We really appreciate it. Best of luck with Hoop Fest. I happened to be in Spokane one year, just about 7-8 years ago when it was going on. I was just shocked at the amount of courts and just the look of it and how it dressed up the downtown area so much. It was just really cool. So maybe Noah and I got to come out for an event. I don't know about putting together a team. We're long in the tooth for that.
Me, Clint, and Richie Fromm is our team.
No. I don't let you off the hook that easy. Like Hoop Fest is for everyone, every level. And so this is exactly what we're looking for. You guys need to put together a team and come out and enjoy it. It really is a great celebration of the game.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope there's a level for the receding hairline category or bracket, because that'd be no one. But Matt, thank you so much. Best of luck, man. We'll be in touch, and good luck to Gonzaga going forward. Hope to see some continued success for the Zags, my friend.
Let's not wait so long.
All right.
That whole year till another March.
You betcha.
Yep. Wonderful. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks to Matt Santangelo. We are going to pencil him in for this time next year. Always look forward to talking to him. And like you know, he has a really high expectations for Gonzaga in this tournament, and that is to be understood. I am definitely in the same boat as you guys. When we come back, we are going to be getting more into a little bit more March Madness and a little bit more about the Chiefs. Times, my friend, they are a-changing in Kansas City. We're going to be talking about your Kansas City Chiefs when we come back. So I know March Madness has kind of swept our city here in Kansas City, considering you've got 3 local teams playing in Missouri, Kansas, and Kansas State. Everybody kind of dialed into this, seeing where their team's going, maybe following their team to Wichita or Nashville or wherever it may be. And I think that's a really special thing. Kansas City, which is a great sports town, and there is all sorts of representation here as far as who your favorite team is. Basically, if you didn't grow up with a favorite team, you're probably a Kansas fan. This is also a magical time in Kansas City where unsuspecting girlfriends are wearing their boyfriend's old Jacques Vaughn jerseys around town, unsuspectingly, just being thrust into that, because that's what happens. Kansas is the NBA team here in Kansas City, and if you have no affiliation, might as well just throw on a crimson and blue jersey and be a Jayhawk fan. That's how it works here.
Yeah,
it makes me sick.
It does. You see them walking around, and March Madness is going on. Kansas, go Jayhawks, yay!
Cross the state line, if you want to say that's what I say. There's a very, the Louisiana Purchase made this very clear. Kansas City was a city in Missouri 40 years before Kansas was a state. So you need to know that history if you want to wear that jersey around. And there's a whole wide open state called Kansas. Not much for population. There's plenty of room for you over there, and you could cheer your little heart out.
Absolutely.
But that's what's great about Kansas City. Tongue in cheek, of course, but a lot of great fans. It's
Border war, got to keep it alive, even though it's dead.
The NCAA committee decided not to keep it alive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could have easily put Missouri as an 8 seed in Kansas region, decided not to.
Yeah, I think Bill Self had a hand in that. He's one of the top coaches, says Jay Billis, and so of course he's going to have a hand. He's going to have his hand in the cookie jar with the NCAA and say, no.
Is it that easy?
Missouri is not going to face.
Is it that easy when you talk about Jay Billis, and we talked with Matt Santangelo about it? But is it that easy just to say the best coaches are Roy Williams, Bill Self, John Calipari? Oh, the coaches from the blue blood programs that already get all the unfair advantages anyway, that buck NCAA investigations and FBI investigations to remain at the top? I'm sorry. I'm not sure it's that easy. I think someone like Mark Few should be considered, because maybe it's more about what you do, doing more with less, instead of just being handed the reins to a kingdom and just keeping your head above water. That's what it's more about to me.
Especially when these 20 consecutive NCAA tournaments that Gonzaga has isn't them just muddling through the non-conference, not really scheduling anyone, dominating their conference, or winning the WCC conference championship every year and getting in. No, they're getting in because they're scheduling the big boys, they're beating the big boys, and they're dominating their conference and winning the conference championship. That's how they're doing it. But I want to talk, there's one coach that got fired, Kevin Ollie from UConn, and there's talk that program's open, the men's basketball program, they're looking for a coach. There's Gino Auriemma. Can you just switch offices from the women's side over to the men's side? And what would that say? What would that message be? We want you to leave the women's program and come over here and coach men's because men's is more important.
I think UConn is such an unique place because they've had the success in both men's and women's basketball. And, of course, the women, under Gino Auriemma have been, just the benchmark for women's athletics. But no matter what, men's basketball always means more. Kevin Ollie won a national title at UConn. Come on. I don't know that this program will ever get back to what kind of Jim Calhoun had it at, where it's among the elite, where it was really a blue blood. It just seems like it's been a few years since they've been a part of things. They don't seem quite, since they won the national title, they just haven't really been there. They haven't been a factor. And as time goes on, you don't have that, you don't get that visibility of being in the tournament and being a top seed. You kind of fall off. It can happen to anyone. It's kind of happened to Indiana.
Yeah, and just to play devil's advocate on people saying that, oh, well, women's basketball doesn't mean as much as men's because they want Gino Auriemma to coach the men's. It's more important. Well, what about the other side? That Gino Auriemma has done as much as he can on the women's side. He's turned it into a blue blood. The men's side needs help. If he can go over there and help them and they can get a coach to maintain, everyone's still going to want to go to UConn because it's a blue blood. They're known. They're winning championships year in, year out, going undefeated year in, year out. So that can maintain, and they can find someone to sustain that while Gino Auriemma lifts up the men's program.
Would you be a little skeptical, no matter how much success Coach Auriemma's
I would
had?
a little bit. He said he can do it, but
I'm sure I think so. But if I'm a UConn
he said coaching is coaching.
I agree with that to an extent, but I also look at it like, well, this is a whole new animal. I mean, this is what Jim Calhoun established here. Kevin Ollie won a title. I don't know that you just hand over the reins and say, oh, let's go, let's do this.
And I don't know enough of the nuances in the women's game and the different coaching styles for the women's game versus the men's game.
The differences in athleticism and the way you coach your girls. Maybe you want to be a more shooting-oriented team. In men's side, you have so much more athleticism and so many more things that your guards can do, and you have 7-footers that can just straight up dunk under the basket. Maybe I think the game is
curl to the hoop, throw a lob up, and let's get Dunk City going. And
it's different.
You don't have that with the women's game, so it might take a little adjustment period. And is that okay with them? Are they going to give them the time to have that adjustment period in the men's game? It's an interesting thing. I just thought I'd bring it up.
I like that. Noah, before we let things go, we'd be remiss if we didn't get into our hometown Kansas City Chiefs, the team that is just going through all sorts of changes. They are the teenage boy with the voice cracking. Changes are among us.
You mean Bruce Weber, Kansas State head coach?
I wasn't going to go there, but absolutely. This team's changing. This is a complete overhaul. The last 10 months have seen the removal of a GM, has seen the best corner in the NFL traded away, has seen the top-rated passer in the NFL traded away. This is just, it's almost something that we've dreamt about forever, having a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes coming in here to lead this, to lead the franchise, to be the face of the franchise. But when we talk about it, you say, this team just doesn't look like it's going to be as good next year. It's 7-9 or 8-8. Are you okay with taking a step back? Is that what they're counting on? Is that what really they want? Because I don't know that it is. I think that they think they can stay right here and win this AFC West again.
Well, I think I have to be okay with anything because for as long as I can remember, I've wanted them to draft a quarterback in the first round, get a franchise quarterback, and then just let it play out and be okay with whatever. They've drafted the first-round quarterback, so if they got to take a step back in 2018 to move forward, take one step back to take 2 steps forward in 2019, 2020, then I got to be okay with that. And you look at the signings they've made, Sammy Watkins, 3 years, $48 million, $16 million a year. That's a lot of money for a guy like Sammy Watkins who's never made a Pro Bowl, never been an All-Pro, has had lots of injuries, especially with his feet that slowed him down, hasn't been the player we saw in college at Clemson. That's a lot of money, but there were a lot of teams interested. You've got to take a chance. They like Sammy. They like his upside. He's only 24 years old. He'll be 25 by the time the season starts, but you like the upside, what it gives you with 2 speedy wide receivers on the outside, Hill and Watkins. They can't double them both while doubling Kelsey. Someone's going to be open. It gives Patrick Mahomes a lot of options, a potent offense, so it's going to be interesting to see what this offense can do.
Is this the best situation that a first-year starting quarterback has ever come into? You look at the NFL's leading rusher in Kareem Hunt, an offensive line that's been solidified now for a few years, and you might get a guy like Parker Anger back, and you may lose a Zach Fulton along the way, but this line looks pretty solidified. You look at the receiver weapons and Travis Kelce, one of the best tight ends in the game. Is this, have a chance to be one of the top couple offenses in the NFL, even with a first-year starting quarterback? And is this the best situation you've ever seen a quarterback like this come into? You see, like a guy like Mitchell Trubisky going into like kind of a bland Chicago Bears offense last year, and I know they've added some parts, and recently signed Chase Daniel bizarrely, but give me your thoughts on this deal with Mahomes and the situation he's coming into.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson came into a good overall situation with the Houston Texans last year. DeAndre Hopkins, Nuke Hopkins, they have one of the best wide receivers in the game, so that obviously helps out a young quarterback from the word go. They don't have a lot of pieces around him, though, on that offense. They had a decent offensive line. C.J. Fedorowicz at tight ends, not great. Lamar Miller in the backfield they got from the Dolphins wasn't great. Will Fuller, speedy, but not great hands. But they had that dominant defense. So overall, he came into a good situation. We were talking about this the other day. You mentioned Dan Marino. That's a good one. Clayton and Duper coming in with that situation as a rookie. his second year throwing 48 touchdown passes. But I think Mahomes he's got the running back, he's got the tight end, 2 stud receivers potentially if Watkins can stay healthy. So I think he's coming into one of the best situations we've seen for rookie. Aaron Rodgers taking over for Brett Favre, came into a nice situation, still not as good as this. The Packers have struggled surrounding him with the right talent, especially in the backfield and with the offensive line. So I think Patrick Mahomes has it all right in front of him. A little weak offensive line, but those weapons, you got to look at that and just be like, wow, this kid has all the weapons around him. They've surrounded him with top-tier talent that he can go out there and have a successful rookie campaign.
Defensively, can this team get better numbers-wise? They were the 29th ranked defense last year. We know losing Marcus Peters hurts. That's a ball hawk. That's someone that just has irreplaceable ball skills, big playability. But can this defense get better? You got Eric Berry coming back. You got Justin Houston maybe another year healthy. Where can this defense be? What's its ceiling for next year? You bring in a Kendall Fuller to, I guess, replace Marcus Peters. We didn't think so at the time.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it would have been nice to pair those two up together. And you also bring in David Amerson. That's sight to be seen because we're not sure the Raiders fans and organization are happy to be rid of him. He didn't offer them a lot in a Raiders uniform. We did sign, the Kansas City Chiefs signed Anthony Hitchens, a linebacker from the Cowboys, to a $9 million a year deal. It's going to be interesting to see what he can offer. He's had some injury problems, missed the first 4 games last season. He can cover. He was great, rated number 1, I think, by Pro Football Focus against the run as an inside linebacker. So him and Ragland's going to be a good pair. You got D Ford coming back. If they can get a pass rush, this defense has to be better than 29th. Everyone wants to point to the secondary last year. Yeah, it's going to take a dip without Marcus Peters this year, but a lot of that was due to no pass rush. Deion Sanders and Marcus Peters together can't cover all day long. You have to have a pass rush. You have to get after the quarterback, make him uncomfortable, make him throw the ball before he wants to, and that helps out your secondary. A great secondary helps out your pass rush. Pass rush helps out your secondary. It goes hand in hand. Complementary football on defense, whether it's the defensive line, secondary, and the linebackers. Complementary football between the offense and defense. Add in the special teams. It's all complementary football. It's not just one thing.
Yeah, and you bring back a guy like D Ford. This is his last chance in Kansas City. We have not seen him grow to the potential that we thought he had coming in from Auburn. Justin Houston had 9.5 sacks last year. That's not really going to cut it on a $160 million contract, but he's 29.
He's 29. He had Frank Zombo on the other side doing nothing, so everything was slanted towards his side. They're doubling him, so he really didn't have many options.
Eric Berry returning. What does that do? Not only from a standpoint of maybe him becoming kind of the, because obviously 2016 you saw Eric Berry was that ball hawk. He was changed so many games for this team with his turnovers. Not only that, but the leadership coming back. That's got to play a hand in it. You just wonder what might have been if this defense does improve next year. Like, well, what if Marcus Peters was in that secondary as well with Kendall Fuller and Eric Berry?
I worry about too much on Eric Berry's shoulders coming into this season. He's already focusing on rehab and coming back from the Achilles, and you're going to wonder where his head is at on the field if he's thinking about that, re-injuring that. And now it looks like he might have to babysit the secondary. You've got Kendall Fuller, young player coming along, David Amerson, a new face. Then you've got just Steven Nelson and Terrence Mitchell out there, still growing as corners, developing, so he's going to have to babysit them. And then you've got Daniel Sorensen and Eric Murray at the safety. The Chiefs have released Ron Parker, so it looks like one of those two is going to have to be there unless they sign someone or draft someone. But it looks like he's going to have to help a lot of new faces, whether it's the corners or the new safety he's playing next to. That's a lot on his shoulders, especially he's going to be looked at as a leader of this team now. With Derek Johnson's gone, you've got Justin Houston there, but Eric Berry, he's got a lot on his shoulders. Can he do it? If there's one player in the National Football League other than Tom Brady that can handle that much on his shoulders, I think it's Eric Berry, but it'll be interesting to see.
Is the balance of power shifting in the AFC West? The Chiefs have had a strong hold on this division for 3 years. Yes, I know they only won it the last 2 years, but in 2015 they won 10 straight games. They, lost the division only because of a Jamal Charles fumble on the last play of the game against the Denver Broncos. They were the better team that year in that division. Of course, Denver went on to win the Super Bowl, which is, another crazy fact. But the balance of power. You still got Phillip Rivers putting up, just really playing for stats at this point. I don't think he's someone that's ready to get a team to a Super Bowl. But their young defense, you got a guy like, Ingram, Joey Bosa. The pass rush is there for them. We know what they have. Secondary solid.
Casey Hayward, Jason Verrett, yeah.
Is the balance of power shifting, or are we ready to just hand this thing to the Chargers?
Oh, I'm not handing anything to the Chargers, but I think as of today, as we are talking right now, I think my favorite would be the Los Angeles Chargers. Excuse me, I almost said San Diego. Everyone does it. It just doesn't feel right because it's not right. They should be in San Diego, but they are in Los Angeles. So the Los Angeles Chargers, I look for them. Melvin Gordon, Keenan Allen, Antonio Gates is still out there burning Derek Johnson. At least he did last year. So Phillip Rivers, that's a question mark. He does like to turn the ball over, but I think with that strong defense, Casey Hayward, Jason Verrett, Melvin Ingram, Joey Bosa, who we mentioned, that's a strong defensive unit, great pass rushers, great secondary, something that we talked about that the Kansas City Chiefs lacked last year, could be lacking this year. Kansas City has a strong offense, it looks like, if Patrick Mahomes can be the quarterback we think he can be. The Broncos look to be taking a step back with
again.
Yes, with Case Keenum, but they lose to Lieb. There's talk about Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas on the trade block, so that's yet to be seen what happens there with that secondary. And those wide receivers, Bradley Roby steps into the starting position for Talib, so that's a question mark. And with the Oakland Raiders, John Gruden there, but they haven't really added a lot of pieces. They've just lost some pieces in David Amerson. We're not sure what they're going to do with Marshawn Lynch or Michael Crabtree. So it's Derek Carr and Amari Cooper out there as the lone guns on offense for them. And John Gruden says he wants to take coaching and football back to 1998. That wasn't very good. They went 8-8. The Broncos beat them twice. So I'm not sure you want to be taking it back to 1998.
Well, we're going to be talking about all the free agent happenings, the draft's coming up. That's going to be, our big focus coming up here in late March and April, certainly. We want to thank you so much for listening. Check out our website, gasnsports.com, our Twitter at gasnsports. You can hit us up. We always appreciate the feedback. I can't thank you enough for listening here on 102.7 FM. It's been wonderful to be a part of this station and to be on here and to talking with you guys, and we just can't thank you guys enough. So much excitement coming up. It's going to be your money stays and plays right here with Noah and I here on the Great American Sports Show. No doubt about that.
Absolutely. March Madness is upon us. Everyone get excited, get pumped. It's somebody's one shining moment. Who's it going to be? Stay tuned. We'll guide you through the entire March Madness bracket as it moves along to the Final Four and then to the National Championship in San Antonio. We'll see you there.